It has been more than 2 years since I released my previous Engineer open world PvE farming build. There were changes in many aspects of the game, so I've decided to basically remake it from scratch. I've also received a lot of questions about why is this build so good, and I will try to explain as many synergies as I can. There might be some changes and updates in the future, and if so, I will add them to the first pinned comment under this video, so don't forget to check it out if you watch this in the later date. Same as before, the main purpose of this build is make Engineer as easy and effortless to play as possible in the open world PvE. Everything is done passively: your sustain, your speed, your buffs and heals. It's so simple to use that the only thing you have to do is running around and spamming skill 1. This build have over 31,000 HP, permanent 25 might, stability, fury and regen, 25% movement speed, high damage reduction, up to 4000 heal per kill and ability to take everything. DPS is not great, but the goal of this build is not to have top DPS. It's about chilling game experience where everything requires minimal effort. But remember, this build is only viable for open world PvE, solo story instances, meta farms, gathering and world versus world packzerging. Do not attempt to use this build in any other situation or you will fail miserably. All gear pieces including trinkets and backpack have to be Wanderer, so power, toughness, vitality and concentration. Any other stat combo makes this build less effective. Wanderer recipes can be bought at Dragon's Stand currency vendor. The weapon type is not that important since you won't be using it anyway. You can stay with the hammer for its better CC, blocks and evasion, but I personally switch for rifle because otherwise this build will miss something that can hit targets on the maximum range if necessary. Also, jump shot is nice for extra mobility. What changed with the recent patch are runes and sigils. Sigil of Restoration heal mechanic was revamped, so it's no longer usable with this build. And with other major changes in that patch, I've decided to shift things a bit. Instead of durability runes, I now use vampirism ones. I've sacrificed 5% of total boon duration and a bit of toughness for way more power and vitality. But what is really amazing is its 6th bonus. 10% of health restored on kill moved the survivability of this build into the god tier. Before, with the Restoration Sigil, it was 670 HP per kill and I was pretty much unkillable. Now it's 3150 per kill. That's almost 5 times the amount and more than half of your main heal. How it works is simple. All you have to do is hit any mob what gives XP. Even 1 damage grants you this heal when it dies. There is no internal cooldown, so more mobs you tag, more immortal you will be. The first sigil will be concentration to compensate missing boon duration due to removing durability runes. As a second, I prefer sigil of strength, which guarantees 25 might all the time, even after recent Juggernaut nerf and with currently a bit lower boon duration. Or eventually sigil of stamina would refill your endurance with each kill, but dodge is not something you would need very often with this build. There is another option for world versus world, what can drastically increase your survivability if necessary. The Training Sigil what can be bought at Tangled Depths currency vendor. This one will provide additional strong heal, but only on interrupt. It means that target has to cast some skill and you have to interrupt it by some hard CC like stun, knockback, knockdown or daze. The sigil will drain around 1000 HP and has no internal cooldown, so if you interrupt multiple targets at once, every one of them will heal you. With this build, I like to use it in conjunction with Hammer Skill 5. It can stun up to 5 targets, so in ideal situation it restores 5000 HP. But it doesn't end there. Hammer 5 also lays down Lightning Field, where you can use Hammer 3 for 2 leap finishers what daze up to 5 targets each. And since daze is also interrupting, this simple combo can heal you up to 15,000 HP if it's your lucky day. I would not recommend using this sigil in PvE, since mobs don't cast as often as players, and most of their skills are almost instant, so it's much harder to interrupt them properly. We've also got some cool new nourishments over the years. What we wanna achieve is the maximum concentration, but since it's farming build, you may want to also focus on the magic find. For maximum magic find, take the flask of pumpkin oil for 30% and chocolate omnonberry cream for another 40%. Chocolate omnonberry cream is also go-to food if you wanna maximize concentration, but this time with magnanimous maintenance oil. There are other 2 combinations what you can use. If you wanna maximize your concentration but you don't use strength sigil, take fried golden dumplings instead to keep your 25 stacks of might. You can also swap for omnonberry compote, what works in the same way as vampire groons, and together you will have over 4000 heal per kill. There is one more useful item called Clean Refreshing Drink, what decreases incoming condition duration by 10% for 30 minutes. It stacks with food and utility buffs, but works only in open world PvE, dungeons and fractals. You can buy it at this vendor in the SR for a bit of karma. Now let's take a look on skills and traits. I will mash them up together a bit since it's important to see the synergies. The best heal skill is still Healing Turret, especially for its party healing and condition cleanse, what adds up to the event and kill contribution. Since this build has a high sustain and health on kill, we will use it more as an additional utility than heal. The turret itself removes 2 conditions, but with minor trait cleansing synergy it removes 3. If you will use the turret and pick it up for shorter cooldown, and its tool belt always when they are ready, you should achieve permanent regeneration alongside main heal every 16 seconds, what will keep you at full health in situations where you can't tag and kill any trash mobs. Ongoing regeneration will also trigger trait Energy Amplifier, what increase your healing power by 250, which obviously boosts all your heals, including those from runes and food. Another reason why you should use heal in combat every time when it's on cooldown is trait Reconstruction and Closure, what gives you around 5 seconds of protection, and Recovery Matrix, what gives 3,600 barrier. Don't worry that you won't have your heal ready when it's really necessary. With trait Automatic Medical Response, it resets its cooldown if you get under 25% of HP. The main thing what we will use is Flamethrower. Its skill 1, Flame Jet, is everything you will ever need. It deals enough damage, and what is the most important, it's probably the best tagging skill in the game. It's Cone Channeling AoE, what can hit up to 5 targets at once. The thing is that during its 2-second cast, its output 10 separate hits, and each can tag 5 different targets, so you will never miss a target in your range. With the trait Juggernaut, will Flamethrower also periodically stack might and permanent stability, which is a huge deal because you don't have to bother with all those CC annoyance. With trait Mass Momentum and Sigil of Strength, you will easily keep 25 might all the time without any additional effort. You may argue here that on-crit sigil and traits won't work well when this build has 0 extra precision and only 5% base critical chance, but that is not accurate. The trait High Caliber increases crit chance by 15% when you are in range threshold, which you always are. The trait Hematic Focus adds another 10% against bleeding foes, and they will always bleed because of trade sharpshooter and those 10 fast hits from Flamejet. And then, on a critical hit, you will gain Fury for 7 seconds every 8 seconds, again thanks to Flamejet, which is another 20%. So in total have this build 50% crit chance pretty much all the time. Other two utility skills are not mandatory, but certainly helps. I like to have rocket boots all the time for mobility, even now when we have mounts. They were boosted not long ago and can be used twice in a row if you have enough charges. For the third utility, I've narrowed it down to 2 skills. For most of the time, I have equipped Bulwark Gyro for even more damage reduction. It stacks with protection, and if you have both active, you can easily withstand even the most devastating attacks. The second option is Elixir S for invulnerability and extra stealth on its tool belt. Not that you would need more survivability, but it's great when you want to loot some chest and getting constantly interrupted by mobs around. That is also a reason why I exclusively use the Sneak Gyro as my elite. More stealth for more comfortable looting. And now the remaining traits. There are some unimportant minor, so I will skip those. Mecha legs are your source of movement speed. Yes, it's only 25% compared with 33% from swiftness, but it's passive and I never had any issue to keep up with others. On top of that, it reduces the duration of movement impairing effects like a chill or immobilize. With your permanent stability, it's another middle finger to all those annoying mobs, what usually disturbs you when you have to get somewhere ASAP. If you are really crazy into gathering in places like ore, when you are constantly immobilized, you can use a bit different variant of this build, where you swap for Runes of Nature Bounty and Saffron Bread. Together with Mecha Legs and Clean Refreshing Drink, it gives you 88% condition duration reduction, what renders most of those negative effects almost non-existent. Bunker Down is a nice source of additional damage and health packs. Use it if you play solo. However, if you farm in larger groups, take Medical Dispersion Field instead. It will share 50% of your heal with others, which passively increase your kill and event participation. And well, it will also keep those squishy tryhards alive once some mobs sneeze in their direction. In big fights, I like to use Adaptive Armor, what gives a little bit of barrier every 3 seconds if something hits you. And while you have the barrier, damage of conditions on you is reduced by 20%. It goes nicely together with your barrier on heal. Also, all your barriers are 15% stronger because of Impact Savant. The second option is Applied Force, what gives you 5 seconds of quickness every 10 seconds if you have enough might. And since you have it all the time, it's just another passive boost while you're holding Flamethrower. However, its main use is not to boosting your damage, but to help you with looting. With quickness, you will loot all chests and mine all nodes 50% faster, simple as that. As I mentioned before, the gameplay is simple. You just run in the front line and tag everything with the Flamejet, that's it. But if you play solo and you are willing to output a little bit more effort, well, you can obviously squeeze some decent DPS with other skills. Since your DPS is low and sustain high, you wanna aggro and face tank as many mobs at once as possible. Don't pick them one by one. With the Flamethrower, you can lay down some napalm and use incendiary ammo and a rocket kick on your tool belt to stack some decent burning. After that, swap to the hammer and use skills in order 5, 3, 2, 4 and swap back to the Flamethrower. Or if you have rifle, use skills 5 and 3 in the order you want. And that's it. Everything else does this build automatically, as I said, it's very simple to use. That's all I had for today, so if you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe or leave a comment and stay tuned for next time.